Thanks very much. Hello, everyone. So I'm Joseph Kaberuka. I recently passed my PhD Viva in computing science at the University of Glasgow. So I'm glad to present today the work about the case studies in the socio-technical analysis of cybersecurity incidents by comparing attacks on the UK NHS and the English healthcare system. So you might have heard of this in May 2017, just some of the trust and the NHS were affected by a ransomware threat, a cyber attack, which really has undermined the level of service across the NHS, where 34% of the trusts within NHS were affected by this attack. So recently in 2021, we have heard of another attack on the Irish state, where the largest employer, the Irish healthcare system, really affected by another cyber attack in terms of county cyber attacks. This is kind of ransomware threats which has hit the Irish healthcare system. So the objective of the work was actually to evaluate the applicability of the STAMP approach based on STAMP control taxonomies to evaluate really its applicability when modeling a cybersecurity incident. So this is just an accident causality model, which is used for modeling accident causations and incident causations. So the objective was to see the applicability of the approach and see if really there is no another level of detail required in order to make really the approach more useful for cybersecurity analysis. The STAMP approach, it's a socio-technical control model which draws its narratives from system thinking theory. So according to systems and control theory, the systems are viewed into hierarchical control structure, where each level of the control enforces constraints on the activity at the lower level. So by using these narratives, when using STAMP for modeling accidents or incidents, we actually, the analysis focuses by modeling systems into hierarchical control structure to identify control actions at each level of the hierarchy that have the potential to bring a system to a vulnerable state. So based on these narratives, STAMP came with three basic concepts, which is the constraints, the hierarchical levels of control, and the process model. Okay, so based on these control actions, the analyst actually is able to identify the required constraints or security requirements, as well as the causal relations when modeling for the incident or accident. So STAMP view accidents or incidents as just a result of inadequate control. So this inadequate control in more detail is explained by a number of control taxonomies. Okay, so in order to identify this inadequate control, a number of control taxonomies should be used to identify control flows within the approach. So we can see the methodology applied on these two case studies. So on the first case study, we can see the methodology on NHS WannaCry incident, where we can see the different levels of control and the risk operations, like inefficiency in terms of enforcing constraints and execution of control actions across across in these incidents in system operations. So in STAMP, you can see the poor management or poor management, poor engineering activity may offer an inadequate control such that in system operations, this is being exploited or could be exploited by different threats. So this risk operations shows actually the enforcement, the lack of enforcement or missing of control actions or constraints in system operations. So same case for the HCE cyber incident. We're able to model the incident and try to identify it from the high level at the lower level, the exertions of control between levels of the control hierarchy and risk operations that could actually introduce vulnerability in system operation. So by modeling the two incidents, we were able to identify common areas of concern, which is really an inadequate communications or missing feedback between levels of the control hierarchy in different levels. We can see inadequate executions of control actions or inadequate enforcement of constraints. We can see mental model flaws, and across between these two incidents, we can also see in asynchronous evolutions in system organizations and system design, where actually the capability, the cybersecurity capability in terms of resources and human does not really correlate with the size of organizations from the two case studies. Now, even though STAMP were able to provide control flows that could be actually lead to incidents, they seems to be very generic. It seems to be very generic, and though it gives some expressive power, but it is very hard to apply to the specifics of a cyber incident. It is for that reason we provide another level of support to the approach by integrating a detailed control taxonomies provided by NIST in order to allow the analyst identifying countermeasures necessary against the STAMP control flaws. So it is for that reason we integrate NIST with the STAMP approach. So the benefits of the approach is that this helps the analyst to identify appropriate mitigations against the STAMP control flaws and provides countermeasures needed really to secure the organization against the identified, against the threats. And our results has shown that this actually increase consistency between analysts, as analysts can be able to compare the incidents of similarity between incidents, and it has shown that the approach works in more general way, just beyond the country and the incident. So we were applying this based on public reports about these incidents. Our future work is intending actually to bypass that by designing an automatic texture tool in order to create STAMP style analysis. So that's the end of presentation. Thank you.